Life, culture, and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
Well, as we do on a Friday, always a good opportunity to catch up with Bill Muhlenberg and talk about some of the things he's been writing about. We've been doing this each Friday through the whole year. Today, our last Culture Watch segment for the year. So a special welcome along to you, Bill Muhlenberg.
Always great to be with you.
Well, Bill, what sort of special plans have you got? Are you going away? Is this family time at Christmas? What sort of things do you plan?
Oh, well, it's fairly quiet, to be honest. We tend to not do all that much, don't really go anywhere, do too much. It'll be the, usual family, extended family Christmas, and take it easy a bit, but nothing too major, not flying off to Europe or, anything quite as fancy. So it'll be pretty relaxed, I think. Maybe you even catch up on some more reading.
Well, I was about to say, probably when you have a break, you probably don't read as much. But then you're sort of working the opposite to what most people do. And I suspect that there'd be a lot of our listeners who are thinking, well, I don't get time. I don't have the inclination through the year to read. But when I've got that couple of weeks off at Christmas and into the new year, I just want to devour something that's going to change my perspective on the world. And I know you've been writing about reading of recent times. If you were choosing a book to read this coming Christmas and into the new year, what style of literature would you recommend, Bill?
Look, it's somewhat subjective. I mean, if you looked at my own marriage, I tend to be the nonfiction reader in the family. Probably 98% of what I read is nonfiction. On the other hand, my wife, probably 98% of what she reads is fiction. So it partly depends what you like to read. I mean, I'm always recommending books. In fact, doing book reviews on my site. So plenty of heavyweight, serious tomes I could recommend, whether theology or history or politics. So it kind of depends on what your mood is and what you're interested in, but never a shortage of good reading out there.
You know, it's probably a little bit similar at my place. My wife likes to read fiction, and I'm the one who's the non-fiction reader. And interesting when you start to talk about heavyweight tomes, because you could classify the sorts of Christian reading we might do to lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight. And I guess there's a progression. As you mature and as your understanding develops, you progress through to the heavyweight. But I imagine that for some listeners, starting with lightweight is good and then moving into something a little bit medium and then up into the heavyweight stuff.
Yeah, well, as long as they're reading, as long as they're exercising their mind, as long as they're not wasting countless hours in front of the idiot tube, sad to say, far too many people, Christians included, simply are not reading, or at least barely reading very much at all, and spend far too much time, whether TV or computer games or social media. They all have their place, but as I just wrote in a recent piece, when you get basically a dumbed-down people, a culture that is not literate, it's not historically aware, that's not reading and thinking, well, those kind of people become a good object for servitude and tyranny. Dictators always love a dumbed-down culture, and if people don't read and think, they're easily led like dumb sheep. So in my recent piece, I said not only is reading important just to make you a full and complete and in case of Christianity, a smart Christian, but it's an important bulwark against tyranny and to keep freedom in an age in which we're losing our freedoms fast.
I imagine this time of year, a visit to the Christian bookstore might be a useful one. And I suppose there's still got to be cautions there about what you do buy even from the Christian bookstore. You hope that everything you're going to get is going to be great, and some of it will be lightweight, some of it will be medium, and some of it will be heavyweight stuff. I imagine you've got to find where you're going to be at when it comes to your reading preference, and then choose something that will stretch you a little more.
Yeah, well, that's right, and I probably should write an article one day, kind of how to choose a good book article or something like that. If you did go into your local Christian bookstore. There's a lot of good stuff, but I hate to say a lot of it is certainly not highly recommended in my viewpoint. In fact, it tends to be the case. Those volumes which are some of the best sellers can be some of the poorest books around, certainly theologically and otherwise. And in fact, often the good stuff, the good make-you-think theological volumes and ethics and apologetics, they're stuck away in a small corner in the back of the shop, so probably most people never even get to see them. So, it really does depend. We can read a lot, but still read a lot of junk, which isn't stretching you, which isn't making you more godly, more Christ-like, which isn't stretching your mind, isn't helping you to think Christianly about the issues of the world and how we can be salt and light. Sure, Christmas can be time to relax and read a brainless novel or two. That's fine. But we also need to be, as Jesus made it quite clear, loving God with all of our mind as well as our soul and strength. So that's a commandment, and that's something we need to do more of and be better at.
Bill, in this day and age, you can Google lots of things to get short answers.
Yeah.
But joining the dots on the big questions of life sometimes takes a little bit deeper reading, deeper time-consuming reading. When it comes to wanting to join the dots, I mean, you can assume that the answers are there on Google, but having a deeper appreciation and understanding of the way God is moving and how his dealings are with mankind, it takes a little bit of extra effort.
Yeah, it certainly does. And, of course, you have to be aware of Google. You can get a lot of good stuff. You can get a lot of bad stuff. You can get false information, misleading, even dangerous and harmful stuff with a simple Google search. So being well-read, being aware of what are some good books, some good authors, and getting a thorough biblical worldview, which means not just knowing your Bible carefully, but knowing some about history, some about politics and culture. I think that's all a great help if we want to be effective in reaching our generation for the gospel. It's fairly obvious we do this. If you're an overseas missionary heading off to Japan, for example, you probably want to learn the Japanese language and learn a bit about Japanese culture, history, and politics so that you are better able to reach the Japanese with the gospel. It's the same here. We live in a post-Christian culture. We should know something about our culture, especially as it becomes more and more anti-Christian, and know more about how a biblical worldview offers important truth to a world that really is starving for truth and reality about God.
Reflect for me for a few moments, Bill, the idea that oftentimes Christian believers are living in a dumbed-down Christianity or illiterate when it comes to the Bible. Even the idea of being entertainment mad in our culture, that we're actually ignoring some of the important things that we ought to be, taking time to read, to absorb, and to allow those things to change the way we think.
Yes, well, the need of the hour is to let my people think, let Christians start using their mind for the glory of God. Paul did say we should be renewed in our minds so that we can be transformed and love God and serve Him better. But sadly, as you know, many Christians won't even read their entire Bible through. They are biblically illiterate. And recent surveys have shown us, at least American reading habits, and it's not looking too good. Almost a third of all Americans have never read one book throughout the whole year. That's kind of scary. What are they doing with their time? Watching TV, playing games? Again, dumbed-down people is both a shame for the Christian because we're supposed to love God with our minds, but as I say, easily manipulated people as well. If we're not aware of what's happening, we don't see how we fit in with the bigger scheme of things, we haven't learned the lessons of history, well, we can be real sheep being led to the slaughter, and plenty of tyrannies run on that very thing. In fact, just think of how many of these have their little book-burning sessions as well. So the two go together. A well-read, literate people are not easily hijacked and hoodwinked, But a dumb culture is very easy to manipulate and abuse and misuse. So Christians of all people should be leading the way. But if we can't even read our own Bibles, well, then we've got a lot of work to do.
Well, reading a goal for this Christmas and New Year season. And Bill, as a writer of books, you do have a new book out. Let me just draw attention to that, because you've written a number of books and you do like to write about those ethical, moral issues that not only we here in Australia, but the West and, in fact, the whole world is facing challenges all about. Your new book is The Challenge of Euthanasia. It's just one of many topics that people could read about and enlarge their understanding about through this coming Christmas, New Year season.
Yes, well, I suppose we could engage here in a little shameless self-promotion. I think it would make
it's a free kick here, Bill.
I think it would make for a good Christmas gift, not just for yourself, but get 2 copies and give one to a friend. Just in South Australia, euthanasia was knocked back a few weeks ago. Now in Victoria, it's being mooted again. In Queensland, they're talking about. So again, it's being pushed everywhere. It's a hugely important issue. Yet sadly, I think most Christians wouldn't have a clue how to think or discuss the merits of something like legalized euthanasia. So my new book, fairly brief, only around 100 pages, is well documented and gives you the facts, figures, information, as well as the biblical data on how to argue the case for a culture that's really, it's become a culture of death. So, yeah, that would be one of a number of volumes I might recommend. But we do have to be reading, we have to be thinking, we have to be engaging with our culture. Otherwise, we're just not going to be the salt and light that Jesus commanded us to be.
And when you visit Bill Muhlenberg's website at billmuhlenberg.com, or you can simply Google Culture Watch, you'll be able to read an article that he's written about books, reading and tyranny in a postmodern world. You might also like to take advantage of getting a copy or 2 of Euthanasia. It's The Challenge of Euthanasia. There's other books that Bill's written there too, The Challenge of Abortion, and also a couple of books that he's written about the challenge of homosexuality, strained relations and dangerous relations. Well, Bill, it's been a great year getting your insights each Friday. Just appreciate you so much, and I'm hoping that you and your broader family will have a wonderful, happy and holy Christmas, that it might be a time of unity and family togetherness, and expecting some good things ahead in 2017. Thanks so much for being with us on 2020.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and I look forward to doing it all over again next year.
Before you go, thanks for listening.
There's lots more great audio on demand, or you can listen to us live at visionradio.org.au.
And remember, Vision is listener supported. Your donation,
large or small,
will help us continue connecting faith to life for hundreds of thousands of people across Australia and around the world.
Learn more or donate today at visionradio.org.au.